CJ, Carl, and Dan. And CJ, when you get 2 hit by a baseball team, the loss, it doesn't feel as bad.
Because you felt like you never really had a chance.
Correct.
I guess there's something to that, right? It's like any girl that, pretends like she's interested in the conversation as opposed to just shutting you down right from the beginning.
Correct.
Yes.
There's something about that. It hurts for a second, but at least there's no false hope, I think, in there. And that's part of it at a time when the Jays really can't afford to be losing games. But Peyton Tolle is good. You saw that. Big arm. It was just good to see Max Scherzer, quite honestly, and how well he's kind of thrown and keeping things competitive. It was a big moment for him with the 3,000 strikeouts, which is really cool to see. But one of those days, I mean, listen, the Red Sox have slipped. It was overall good series for the Jays, especially when you're going up against a team that is holding on to a wild card spot right now. So there was some good in there, and overall, it's been a good couple of series for the Blue Jays.
The Jays have, in fact, been hot, and it seems as though they did catch this Red Sox team at the right side on the back end of a historically significant win streak over the previous 35 games. So how much of that factors into the confidence of this team moving forward? They got the Yankees coming into town this weekend now, and they might be catching them at the right time as well.
Yeah, so I just saw the Yankees actually about a week or so ago, and they're a beatable team. They're a good team. They're going to pitch well. It's the same kind of thing where you can probably expect a lower output of offense from anybody that's facing the New York Yankees right now because their starting pitching is really good, and it could only get better once they get Carlos Rodon back. That's the challenge, but at the same time, you pitch well enough. These are games that you should be able to win or keep close because the offense right now with the Yankees has not been particularly good. We know they're missing their big three in Bellinger and Stanton and Judge, and that has made a significant difference. And the guys that they have there, they can be exposed. Now, Ben Rice is really good, and you got to keep an eye on him. He can be problematic. Grisham can always take it deep, not having a great year. And you'll get your first look at George Lombard. For Blue Jays fans, probably need to get used to it because this guy looks like he is in it for the long haul. He looks legitimate. I feel like the Yankees finally found their shortstop. It's early, but this kid looks really good. Moves well. At-bats have been good. But they are, I would say, a beatable team. It's, they're a second-place team. They're a good team, but it's not a Yankees juggernaut where they're fully healthy, and you feel like, man, how are we going to beat this team? You look at the next 3 series, and 2 of those include the New York Yankees and then the Tampa Bay Rays. So there's work to be done. I think we'll all have a much better idea of how real this is after they get through these next 9 games. But it starts this weekend with the Yankees coming into town. Yeah, there's some confidence to it. I mean, listen, the Boston Red Sox were an underperforming team that went to an overperforming team, and then you show that you can take them in a series. And I think it does matter right now for this team. And I know they're dealing with a couple of significant injuries, but, confidence should be in a pretty good place because you are in striking distance right now, that wild card.
What can you tell us about the Red Sox apparently tapping into the opposing team's PitchCom?
Oh, I didn't even realize that was true.
So here's the conspiracy theory, CJ.
All right.
They apparently got caught tapping into the opposing team's PitchCom, and when this was discovered, that's when they started losing to the Jays.
Oh, so I would be shocked, first of all, if that's true, and I don't know how you actually do that. There's one of the things that was always concerning is that could somebody hear it, right? Could a hitter hear it when he was in the box if it was too loud, say in the catcher's helmet, right? That's why they end up using the earpieces. But are there other positions that potentially could happen? I mean, as far as actually tapping into it and hearing it directly into your ear with an earpiece or having your own PitchCom, if that was true, and I did not hear this, so this is all news to me, that would be an absolute bombshell and a huge problem for the Boston Red Sox. Now, I guess, could you sit there and say, hey, it's like the old days, right, where there's interference with wireless things, and like we didn't know, and it just happened to show up in our ears? I'd be floored to find out whether or not that's actually true, but that would also be a monster story in baseball.
But if you aren't cheating, you aren't trying. So someone's definitely looking into it. Hey, is this on like a walkie-talkie signal? There must be a way we can check it out.
Yeah, well, they're going to find out. And electronic stealing, sign stealing, as we know, going back to what the Houston Astros had done and others. They weren't the only ones, but others that had been accused of it or had been given warnings in the past as a huge no-no in baseball. You're still allowed to pick up signs. You're still allowed to pick up location if you want to transfer that if you're sitting out at second base and let the hitter know, hey, this guy's set up in, this guy's set up out, or I see a pitch grip in his glove and I know a curveball is coming. Like, all of that stuff is legal, but once it becomes electronic, it is not. And Major League Baseball has some pretty strong opinions about it.
I would almost think as well with the electronic to pass the information, if you were to even hack and receive it and actually get it into the batter's ear, the turnaround time on that does not seem realistic to me, right? Like it's
Yeah,
one thing for the guy on second base.
send the hitter an email.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's one thing for the guy on second base to put his hand on his right hip when a fastball is coming, but it's another thing entirely to relay an electronic message out to the guy on second base and somehow alert the
Yeah.
batter.
Very true.
Well, here's how I could tell you it could work if you were to have it. Think about how many times that you're watching the game on television and they show the pitcher who's not even on the rubber yet, is not setting, is already shaking his head yes or no, right? So the catcher is trying to get him to sign as quickly as he can. You don't have to wait for the hitter to be addressed to use the PitchCom, right? That sign is transferred via the PitchCom earlier than the guy's actually ready to throw. So there's probably a good, on average, 3 to 5 seconds that are available. So now, depending on if this were true, where it's happening and who's actually picking it up, let's just say there's a coach that's in the dugout that happens to have a pitch.com that also is picking up theirs, and he knows from that point there are a lot of easy, quick ways to do it, right? There's always been when you've picked up signs where whether it's a tell or in this case if it's electronic, where you might say something like, hey, heads up, I got the signs. Here's how it's going to work. If I say your number, it's an off-speed pitch. If I only say your first name, it's a fastball, whatever that might be, right? So then you get locked into one coach that's in the dugout while you're sitting there in the batter's box getting ready and only listening for his voice. And if you hear something, you're going to know. So it actually would happen a lot faster than you think.
2 questions about PitchCom, because we've never really discussed this. Do pitchers and catchers like it? And is it mandatory? If a pitcher and catcher wanted to use old school hand signals, are they allowed?
So one, they do like it for sure. I think it keeps everything moving along. It also gives pitchers a little bit more confidence knowing that the signs are not getting picked up, right? There's something to that, of course, unless there's any truth to this electronic PitchCom situation as far as picking up another team's signals. But they absolutely love the convenience of it, and it is not mandatory. There have been times, and a lot of times it ends up being kind of a pitcher who has been around for a little while, where maybe the PitchCom goes bad and they don't want to waste, like, bring me out another one, that whole delay that we have. They'll just either leave it in their hat or they'll throw it in the dugout and they just go to finger signs. I miss those days as a broadcaster, especially because it was really nice to be able to bring viewers in to play along, right? To sit there, like, the signs really haven't changed. It's really amazing how consistent they are. 1 fastball, 2 curve, 3 slider, wiggle, change. And then there's, if you have a deeper repertoire, there's different ways to be able to get there. But it was always fun with an audience from my standpoint as a color analyst to go ahead and go tight shot on the catcher's signs in certain points and kind of bring the audience along, especially when there were shakes in there, right? So the guy puts down a 1, he shakes no, curveball. So that's really fun, saying the catcher wanted the fastball, the pitcher wanted the curveball. Now let's together see what happens and find out who was right and who was wrong.
How does it
I
work?
miss that a lot.
How does it work with PitchCom now to shake off a call? Is it still just a head shake as he cycles through different pitch types?
Okay. Yeah, you'll see guys still shaking. No, unfortunately, we can't guess along as much. We are guessing now as opposed to knowing what he's shaking to. And then there's always what we call the fake shake, which always existed even when you had signs. And that was when maybe you were facing a hitter that either you thought was really smart or a guy who you thought could outthink himself a little bit, right? So if you were to fall into certain patterns where you would shake, and more often than not, you were shaking to a certain pitch, so you were shaking to a fastball. But really the catcher wants you to throw a curveball. He's like, hey, give me the fake shake. And then he'd put the curveball down or an off-speed pitch, hoping that he has convinced that hitter that every time this pitcher shakes, or 90% of the time this guy shakes, it's a fastball. Well, let's do a fake shake. And a lot of times the catcher used to literally just do this to the pitcher. All right, now shake, and here come my signs. Well, now you can just go ahead and do it with a push button and say, give me a fake shake. All right, now we're going fastball away. Now he may shake again, depending on the pitcher and how much he wants to be in control of what he's doing. And then, of course, you've also seen the pitchers that actually have the PitchCom calling device on their belt, right? There's certain guys that just don't want to wait on the catcher. They know what they want to do. I haven't seen if Max Fried is pitching. I don't think Max Fried is pitching in the series against the Blue Jays, but he is a guy that does it with the New York Yankees. But there are a lot of veteran guys, or a decent amount of veteran guys, that want to call their own game anyway and don't want to shuffle through a bunch of signs and wait on their catcher. So when they're convicted, whether it's all the pitchers or some of them, they can actually take control and call a pitch.
CJ, give us your take on this current iteration of the Toronto Blue Jays, where we've got a guy in center field that had never played a Major League Baseball game. We've got a guy at third who comes over in a trade. We've got Miles Straw, Kilometer Straw, seeing more playing time. Guys playing for jobs next year. So it's a new fresh set of eyes on the field, new blood. Have you seen this before, where the team just dramatically changes because of all these fresh faces?
Yeah. So 2 things that lead to it, right? Deadline and then, of course, injuries. And I think both of those things are happening right now for the Toronto Blue Jays. The unusual part of it is while you're kind of looking ahead to next year and seeing what guys have, they get what we call a decent amount of runway to figure out whether or not they can stick in the big leagues. The issue that you run into is that you're actually still in contention, right? So that adds a little bit to it. So if anything for John Schneider, I think he probably likes it better, right? Because there has always been this thought, and I know things have changed a little bit. When you get to the back end of the season, especially September when rosters would be expanded, they're only expanded by 2 now, but that you could not believe in the evaluation that you were making on players. And the reason that was is because the competition had gotten a little bit thinned out. So people would always say, don't believe what you see in March. Don't believe what you see in September. It's those other months where you get a much better feel as far as who are players in the big leagues. That has gone away to some degree because we don't see nearly as many players in September. But what you have also is a team that's actually playing for something right now, even though I still agree with the idea that you traded away. That was the right thing to do, especially on Varsho and Gosman. I know it helps a little bit on Hoffman with the money he was making next year as well. But I just think that it still made perfect sense, even though you're in contention. So you have a shot. You're playing meaningful games. You're keeping your fan base engaged. It's going to be a great weekend in Toronto with the Yankees coming into town. And now you get to see how some of these guys react in those situations, right? That's something you cannot replicate in any other scenario. So I think that's a real good thing for John Schneider in the front office as they sit here and look at some of these guys and what they do. But this team is still in it. Now, we've talked all year long about they have got to find a time to go on a run, and it still hasn't happened. Now, it's been a good, 15-4 over their, or 12-7 over their last 19. Where they've played some good baseball, but we still haven't seen a winning streak longer than 4 games all year, which has been unfortunate, right? Because all it takes right now with the way things are going is one of those. Can you rattle off, and this would be a tough time to do it with the competition, can you rattle off 6 or 7 maybe to make it happen and give yourself a little bit of room or make things even tighter in that American League wild card? But yeah, it's an interesting time when you have guys that are doing some new things when it really kind of matters.
CJ, we promised you there would be no math, but I need some help with some math here. It's middle of August. The Blue Jays are significantly under 500, but yet find themselves 2 games back of a wild card. There are only 5 teams in the American League playing at a 500 clip or better. There's only 14 in all of Major League Baseball doing that. But the American League specifically, how exactly does that happen? It just seems like such a unlikely scenario this late in the season.
So much mediocrity that is going on. I think you have the disappointing teams, and the Blue Jays are in that category. The Tigers are in that category of teams that poured resources into their teams, or you just like their rosters and you expected them to be contenders. The Guardians, the Royals, I think, are in that group as well. You know, the A's were good for a little while, and then they kind of fell off. The Rangers are in that group. The Astros are in that group of teams that you expected to be much better. The Mariners are in that group, right, of teams that looked pretty good on paper. The Mariners take it all the way to a Game 7 of the championship series last year with the Toronto Blue Jays, and they can't hit. And they're just kind of an absolute mess, even though they have really good pitching. So they find just enough ways to keep it somewhat interesting, but falling short by a pretty wide margin of expectations. That is relatively consistent. I think that's how we ended up in this kind of mess that we're in right now. We talked a lot about this leading into the deadline, right? Again, you kept hearing me say striking distance is what matters. And at this point, that mediocrity has continued. It's amazing that we're this deep into August, and that is still the case, but it's where we stand right now. And it's a really odd thing. I don't know if it helps the case for MLB when they're trying to talk about parity this offseason with a lockout that is looming and very likely going to happen on December 1st, but it has been an oddity for sure.
The wild card was created just why the NHL came up with the extra point where you get for a tie, because every team is in it for longer than they actually are. It's just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it is with a lot of, unfortunately, some bad baseball that is getting played. But I do like the idea, right? If there was no wild card, or we only had the one wild card, there's not a lot of reason for Blue Jays fans to be excited right now, or at least to have some hope, right? So the reality is it is good for business. It's good for the organization. It's good for the fan base, because you do have a realistic shot. And is there enough maybe for a team like the Jays? Is there enough starting pitching to say, if we can get there, maybe we got a little bit of a run in us? They don't feel like they're built for the long haul, but you just never know in the postseason. You go back and you look at a couple of teams that have won World Series. I was looking at the Braves in 21, the Rangers in 23, where they were riding, 2 to 3 starting pitchers on the high end. I mean, the Rangers pretty much 2 when they won it all. bullpen stepped up. They just had a bunch of moments. Like to win a World Series with 2 usable starting pitchers almost seems impossible, but they did it. And then in the case of the Atlanta Braves, it was like 2.5 starters that they had, and guys out of nowhere just kind of stepping up. So you talk about the guys that are new and kind of feeling their way through it. I understand why there'd be some pessimism, but I think there's also some reason for optimism. You can't get any further behind, right? The 2 games that they're at right now, if you get below 3 games, then I'd say that you're going to start to lose some of that hope because there's too many teams involved. But we'll see, man. I mean, these 9 days, these next 9 games are going to be something one way or the other. And they come out of that with a winning record, at least 5-4 or 6-3. I'd be feeling pretty good about the Jays.
And Kyle and I will be in attendance for Saturday's game, in which there are no announced starters.
So here's what I do.
No,
so I know
Tyon got hurt, so
yeah.
I guess it's a bullpen game.
So here's what I look at for me. There's a website called Roster Resource. It's never exact, right? Because announced starters they're very careful about. But I do lean on them because I think they've been pretty good. They're going to miss sometimes. That's why we call them probables. So they have Bieber tonight.
Bieber's tonight.
Yeah. Simeon Woods Richardson tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And then Dylan C. So we saw. Now remember, he's been in the bullpen. He's been good since he's come over. But you talk about and I hate to say this, but like smoke and mirrors. ERA looks really nice so far over 13 innings, but he's got more walks than strikeouts. But it's only been the 1 run that he's allowed. And I think it was if I'm not mistaken, it was the 1 run with the craziness of the tag up play.
Mm-hmm.
Was he on the mound for that? I think it might've been his run. I don't know. But either way, it's only been 1 run so far against him. So he's been good. So now is it a bullpen game? Probably not completely. I would say that's, can you give us 3 or 4 we feel pretty good about? Hopefully the bullpen's in a good position, although with Bieber starting tonight, I'm not sure it will be, but you never know. And so if the bullpen's in a good spot, then that's a short outing for him. You'd be thrilled, I think, if you get 4 and you're still in it. Flip side, it's Garrett Cole, Cam Schlittler, and Ryan Weathers. And all those guys are really good. Cam Schlittler, we saw him in his last start, man. This dude was throwing 101 in the 7th inning. He's really good, really, really good. So it's going to be a challenge offensively for the Jays.
It's going to be a challenge for Dan to avoid slitting himself as he watches Cam strike out 10 or 11 Jays, but we'll spend some time at the sausage cart and make up for that no matter what, Dan. I think we'll be fine.
Thanks, CJ.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You're welcome. See you guys.